Like new one.
Siman Tet, page 182. No, Siman Tet.
One.
Eze b'gadim chayevim b'tzitzit?
180.
Which clothes are obligated in tzitzit? Which garments do you have to put tzitzit on? Ve'eze p'turim b'tzitzit? And which ones are exempt from tzitzit? Uvo vav seifim. There are 6 halachot in this chapter. The first we studied yesterday, but we'll repeat it again today in depth. Ein chayav b'tzitzit min haTorah. A person is not obligated biblically from the Torah in the mitzvah of tzitzit. Ela beged pishtim. Only clothing that comes from linen. O shel tzemer rechelim, or of wool. Aval bigdei Shaar minim, but garments made from other materials. En chayavim b'tzitzit ela midrabanan, are only obligated in tzitzit from the rabbis. Yesh omrim, adds the Ramah, some say, dechulhu chayavin midaoraita, that all garments are obligated from the Torah. V'hachi hilcheta, and this is the halacha. You find now one of our first times where the Ramah and Maran are really going head to head.
They didn't live at the same time.
They did. The Ramah is a little bit younger, but they're going head to head. So now you're going to find a place that Sfaradim and Ashkenazim will inevitably hold differently. This is one of those places. So let's look on 183. Remember, we're doing selected halakha b'rav for now. 183. V'ra'ui v'nachon, it is fitting and proper lechol yirei shamayim, for every person who has yirat shamayim, fear of heaven, lilbosh talit ha'asuya mitzemer rechelim, to wear a talit that is made of wool. Even though the Ramah says that all of them are obligated, Maran disagrees. So if you would like to satisfy all opinions, the best way to do it would be to wear a wool tzitzit. A wool talit. Kedei sheikayim mitzvah tzitzit min haTorah lechol hadaot, so you can fulfill the mitzvah of having tzitzit on your talit, according to all opinions. It's good to be stringent about this. Af linyan talit katan, even regarding your small tzitzit that you wear on your body. La'asoto mitzemer rechenim, to make it from wool. Kedei sheikayim bo mitzvah tzitzit bechol shaot hayom, in order so that all day long he will get a biblical mitzvah of wearing tzitzit. Now let me ask you a question. Why are we being strict here? Why can't a person just follow, Ashkenazi person especially, just follow the Ramah? Why would there even be an idea to try to satisfy both opinions? It sounds contrary to many of the things we've said until today.
Well, because it's biblical.
Very good. Very good. Because it's biblical. We're not talking here about some rabbinic mitzvah that's a minhag, it's a custom, it's added onto something. This is a biblical mitzvah. When performing a mitzvah from the Torah, you try to fulfill as many opinions as possible, to make a Torah mitzvah stand. And this is especially true. The reason why Maran holds this way is because both the Rambam and the Rif both say that other garments aside from wool are not required in tzitzit. They're not obligated in tzitzit. And therefore, if you want to make the Rambam, the Rif, the Shulchan Aruch happy, you will wear, at least your talit should be made out of tzitzit. And I think that's something that's not so hard to do today. A wool tzitzit is not so expensive. It's expensive, not so much. You can buy a nice talit for
wool kapota.
What does a kapota have to do with talit? You can't make it from linen either. Your kapota. And from between $100 to $200, you can find yourself a decent talit made out of wool. Yeah. And it's a one-time investment. You don't buy one every day. But Baruch Hashem, it's something to think about, to consider. It doesn't mean the other ones are not kosher. They are. According to the rabbis, all of them you fulfill a rabbinic mitzvah with. But if you want to fulfill a mitzvah on a biblical level, the best way to do it would be with a talit. But you see here that a person can be lenient regarding a small tzitzit. Now, especially remember Rabbeinu Avraham said people who wear tzitzit all day long. I'm going to go with you next time through the footnote over there. The rabbi who wrote the book is trying his hardest to show you that, they didn't wear tzitzit and da-da-da-da, but he's really afraid to tell you that there was a generation of Jews that didn't wear tzitzit. There were many generations of Jews that didn't wear tzitziot. It's just a common thing today, but it wasn't so common once upon a time. We're lucky that today it's something that everyone's allowed to do. There were times in the world where it was considered arrogant for just every person to wear tzitziot. It wasn't a common person's mitzvah.
We mentioned one example last week.
Yeah, right? But the fact that it has become acceptable for common people on the common road to do doesn't mean we have the right to disparage those who don't. I cannot tell you how upset it makes me when a boy comes to school and they'll say, "Are you wearing tzitzit today?" They even have in some, I'm not talking about yeshivas, because yeshivas, everyone's wearing tzitzit. I'm talking about schools, high schools. They go to the boy and they forgive me, they start to feel his Shaar. "Are you wearing tzitzit today?" The principal comes over and checks. Kind of like my wife's grandmother. She went to public school, I don't know, 180 in Brooklyn, whatever it was, back in who knows when. I don't know if Israel was even a state. And they would, when she would come to the front door, they would make them, all the girls had to lift up their arms, they would measure their shirts or their skirts to see how long they were. It was like a part of a everyone had to dress in a certain, I'm not talking about a Jewish school, I'm talking about a normal public school. But what kind of message is that going to give a person who's struggling with the mitzvah of tzitzit? It's like a police officer's coming to check for me. There are mitzvot that are obligatory. Are you wearing, you're coming to the mitzvah, are you wearing tefillin? Tefillin is a mitzvah. What about tzitzit?
Some schools have standard uniform.
I understand standard uniform. But maybe we should say tzitziot. I'm really happy about the kids who do wear tzitziot. But just because someone doesn't wear a tzitzit doesn't make them a terrible person. We have to pick our battles.
He doesn't follow the standard uniform.
But why did we make the standard uniform something that is not necessary? You can argue with me. I'm not telling you that I'm right. I'm sure most rabbis would say the opposite of what I'm saying. But it's hot some days. The guy forgot it at home. I don't know what happened to him. Leave him alone. That's how you're going to get a kid to... There was a boy once in the yeshiva that I was teaching at who came to the yeshiva hating Hashem, hating Judaism, hating everything. And he had actually really fallen back in love with his Judaism in the yeshiva. He really loved it. He really enjoyed it. He loved learning. It's like a stellar guy. He went to the top of the class. One thing he would never do, he would never put on tefillin. He wouldn't do it. He would come, he'd wear a talit, read the Torah, no tefillin. So once one of the rabbis said, "What's going on?" He's like, "What's happening?" He said that he had a mother who, in all her good intentions, wanted to make sure that on Sundays when he would sleep in the morning, if he put on tefillin before he came for breakfast. So she would say, "Roll up your sleeve, I want to see your tefillin marks on your arm." So there are some days where he said, "I'm not going to show my sleeve, I'm just going to go up to my room and I won't have breakfast. I'm not willing to put myself through this humiliation of you checking my arm to see if I have tefillin marks." And he said, "It's 8 months into the year, I'm learning a lot, but I will never give my mother that nachat, that benefit of knowing that I now wear tefillin in the mornings." Now, obviously there's underlying psychological issues that have to be taken care of in relationships and families. In the Baruch Hashem, in the place we were, those were dealt with properly. But you sometimes a person has the good intentions, but they're terribly executed.
We may go without meals.
Right, but it's not his problem. It's the... Maybe on the same note, I had a friend of mine who was dating a girl. They were ready to get married and their parents were not interested. When the girl asked her parents, "Why are you not interested?" They said, "Because we love you too much." She came back to one of our rabbis and the rabbi said, "It's amazing what parents will do to their children in the name of love." I'm not telling you can't be a parent, but the question is, you're fighting a war. So in every war there are battles that you agree to lose because you can't waste your energy there, you need to fight somewhere else. And if you know how to strategically plan your war, you will lose battles, you will lose certain things, but at least you'll win the war, hopefully. There's no promise about kids. There's no promise inside of a community. You don't have any promises. Nobody's promising of anything. But the hope is that we know which battles to say it's not worth fighting this battle.
As long as love is not compromised.
Very good. It's sort of unconditional love, but not everyone's able to give an unconditional love. It's a challenge I see very often.
But the love means you trust your family member that it's going to turn out okay. I mean, unless things, God forbid, are really dangerous.
Okay, of course there are things that are red lines that people cannot cross. And every family has the right to put their red lines wherever they feel their family needs to have red lines.
People overreact to the changes that kids go through sometimes, and it's like, they shut them down before, they just let them work through it. And they,
What I've seen, and it's not just with raising children, it's in general, in relationships between people, husbands and wives, I see they have this all the time, families, synagogues, communities. When you choose to make something small into a fight, and then a person gets on their high tree and they're not able to back down from it. And I'll give you an example. It's a silly example. Maybe for some people it's not so silly, but when I used to go visit a certain family in Israel, I would go do Shabbatot with them. They had a rule: the kids are not allowed to drink diet soda. Now,
sounds like me.
any person, and I mean, it wasn't like you. They said you could have regular Coca-Cola, but not the diet Coca-Cola. Okay. And I would sit at this table, and it was a comical thing. If a person ever had the displeasure of tasting a diet soda, you'll know that it tastes horrendous. Yeah. There's all kinds of aftertastes going on over there, and aspartame, and Hashem Yishmael what's inside of these things. And if you only let the kid just take one sip of that stuff, he would never drink it again. A kid is very honest with his taste. You find people fall in love with smoking. Give a kid a cigarette, he'll never do it again. I'm not advocating here. If someone is going to cut out my class, give a kid a sip of beer. Between apple juice and beer, your child will choose apple juice for the rest of his life.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay. No. The understanding here. I'm not telling you, God forbid. Okay. So give your child some crack cocaine and see if he like. I'm not advocating exposure is the only way to get rid of something. But sometimes the fight is. This is not a fight worth fighting. This is the kind of thing that will win itself. You really want to touch the oven when it's hot? Go for it. If you make it all of a sudden it's a big deal, then the whole world caves in about it. A couple fights about something. If you just would let it go, it would never come back again. But you have to hold on to it, so now it became personal, and now it became an issue. Now, I hate when people say, it's not that, it's the principle of the matter. Whenever I hear people talk about the principle of the matter, you know that all hell will break loose before these people will ever make peace again. You made it a principle. It wasn't, until now, it was just a silly mistake. All of a sudden, it became one of the 13 principles of the Rambam by which a person must live their life.
We added the 14th.
14. It's a mistake. It's a mistake. You have even in halakha such things. Rabbi Chassid, he passed away and left behind a will. We don't even know if he wrote the will. It's a question in Jewish literature if it's a forgery or not. But assuming the will is real. In the will, it says all kinds of things. You can't marry a person that has the same name as one of your parents, or else people will die young. You can't marry like this, you can't do this, you can't eat this, you can't cut your nails on this day of the month, you can't shave your hair on this day. All kinds of wonderful things like this. And people, you should see how careful they are. I have a friend, not married. And was suggested many times a girl who listen, I don't know if they would really work out. But if a person who knows him and a person would know her, it makes absolute sense. But he will never date her because she has the same name as his mother. What about HaKadosh Baruch Hu? You forgot about him a little bit. He's involved in the story. If this might be the one, so what are you playing games here with names?
There was a...
And when I was speaking once to a posek, to Rabbi, said, I wish Rabbi Yehuda Chassid would have put the 10 Commandments in his will. Because they're so careful not to marry someone with the same name as their mother, but they'll steal from other people. So I put do not steal inside of the 10 Commandments, inside of the will. Keep Shabbat. I wish people kept Shabbat, like they were worried about which day of the month they can't get a haircut. But unfortunately, we have this tendency when we make a small thing magnified, so people get stuck on it. You want to show?
I have a book by someone who I met and knew years ago. He dated a friend of mine about a Portuguese Jewish family. It ended up being half Jewish, half Catholic because of the Inquisition, which affected there too. And one of his, I guess, great-grandfather was like a Chacham in Israel. And he put a klala on anyone in the family who left Israel to go chutz la'aretz would suffer a terrible fate, horrible things, health, God
a
forbid.
Curse.
Yeah, a curse. And he ended up with a terrible life, and everyone in his family ended up like
I wonder if it's a self-imposed curse.
Yeah, I mean, right. You start to believe these things.
You believe that nothing I'll do will be successful.
It was really heavy.
Heartwarming tales of family unity.
So maybe I'll end up. You mentioned the curse. There is a curse. Was a curse. The Chida, Rabbi Chaim Yosef David Azulai, put a curse on any man over the age of 20 who lives within the walls of the old city of Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is too holy of a place for a person who can't keep pure thoughts And anyone over the age of 20 has to leave the walls of the old city of Jerusalem.
Over the age of 20?
Yeah. And not married.
And not married.
For years, this was, at least the Sephardic community adhered to this custom like it was one of the 11 commandments. And maybe in his generation, in his time, and people were really holy. I don't know exactly the parameters about it. One of the first things Chacham Ovadia Yosef did as the chief rabbi was annul this curse. Was, who are you? How do you go against this thing? He said, it's a different world, it's a different planet. He said people will have all kinds of terrible things happen to them, not because of a curse. They believe that there's something. He said, we have to get rid of such a thing. And he was very successful. You've probably never heard about this till I mentioned this to you.
No,
It used to be.
His shul broke up.
It used to be common knowledge. I'm sure it did as well. And this was one of the first things that Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, as the Sephardic chief rabbi, did that created dissidence in the Sephardic community. I mean, you had a whole political party of Sephardic Jews in the beginning of his career that said, we are Sephardic and we hate Rabbi Ovadia Yosef because of such things.
He was hated.
Because he didn't care. Now, once he was in the Syrian community, and it's famous, the Syrian community does not accept converts to Judaism, period. They don't convert people, there's no such thing.
Came to Brooklyn to try to dissuade them?
Yes, so when they were re-signing their document, forgive me, I know Syrian Jews take this very personally. All the rabbis, true, all the Syrian rabbis signed on this document, it's very holy to them. They prevented intermarriage in their community, which is a very big problem. It goes against 36 biblical mitzvot of accepting the convert, love the convert, protect the convert, cherish the convert. And so it doesn't make a difference if 10,000 rabbis would sign onto this paper. I don't accept it.
What happened to King David?
Well, King David did the same thing.
What is that?
Yes, in the times of King David and Shlomo, they didn't accept converts either. But they used to convert people underground. And then they had no choice but to, what are you going to not accept somebody? These people, they add even more evil to this. Even if someone else converts them, they go converted by the chief rabbi of Israel, they won't count them as a minyan in their synagogue. So it's one thing you don't want to convert people. I got to understand, that's your problem. But then someone else comes from a different place and they're not even treated like a Jew. That's an absurd. No one has the right to do such a thing. As Chacham Ovadia, when he came to speak in the Syrian community, they said, "How could you get rid of this custom?" He said, "That custom? It's not the first custom I'm going to get rid of." He said, "If you would listen to me, I would get rid of your stupid custom also." and they didn't listen to him. So it's famous. Whenever I go to a Syrian place, oh, you love Rabbi Ovadia Yosef so much. They say, oh, how could you do this? Rabbi Ovadia Yosef says you can't do it. I say, oh, how do you do this? Rabbi Ovadia Yosef said he wished he would get rid of your stupid custom. Well, Hashem should know what are the right things that a person must follow and what are the things they must not.